Welcome to the Prepped and Polished podcast, the podcast that empowers you to take control of your education, featuring weekly interviews with influencers in the world of education, as well as tutoring tips, lessons, and updates. And now, here's your host, Alexis Avila.
And welcome back to the Prepped and Polished podcast. This is episode 206. I'm Alexis Avila, your host. Make sure to join our Prepped and Polished podcast community. You can do that by going to preppedandpolished.com. And if you need tutoring, either in person or online, you can go to preppedandpolished.com. If you have a question or reaction during or after our podcast today, preppedandpolished.com, a chat box will appear, and you can type your question, and we'll get back to you right away. Let's get to today's guest. Today on 206, I welcome to the show Jon Pearson, and I'm willing to go out and say Jon is a creative genius who is brave to share with us what goes on in his mind, and he's very generous on how he helps us who are maybe not as creative or are very creative tap into their creative potential. Jon is an artist, writer, speaker, educator, and creativity guru. He's written over 300 short stories. He's been nominated for 2 Pushcart Prizes. He writes now for the same reason he played with his food as a kid, which is to make the world a better place. Jon was a cartoonist for the Oakland Tribune, an extra for the New York Metropolitan Opera, classroom teacher, a college professor, and now he inspires millions and he teaches people techniques to more than 1 million people around the world. And today, Jon is going to give us tips on how to get out of your head and help make your creative writing pieces more creative and meaningful. For another related conversation, check out my podcast on episode number 52 with Bonnie Singer on how to overcome writing challenges. Let's get right to today's podcast with Jon Pearson. I hope you enjoy it. Jon Pearson, thanks for coming on the Prepped and Polished podcast. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. So tell our audience a little bit about your background.
Simple answer, yeah.
Simple answer. A little bit about your background as an artist, a writer, and a speaker who's impacted lives worldwide.
Yeah, I actually wrote a little introduction. May I read that? I mean, I think
Please.
Since it's about creative writing. It's short.
Yeah.
I feel vain doing it, but it covers a lot of ground. Jon Pearson, that would be me, is an artist, writer, speaker, educator, and creativity guru. He's written over 300 short stories and has been nominated for 2 Pushcart Prizes. He writes now for the same reason he played with his food as a kid, to make the world a better place. Jon also was a cartoonist for the Oakland Tribune, an extra for the New York Metropolitan Opera, a classroom teacher, a college professor, and is now a coach and consultant who has taught creative thinking and learning techniques to more than 1 million people around the world. Secretly, though, Jon is still 8 years old and believes that courage, caring, and creativity will save the world. So that's me, basically.
Not a bad gig. Tell us about your website, Jon.
Not at all. I mean, the website, it's called Jon Pearson Creative. I have another website which is called Create Learning, and I did that many years ago. Look, it's 1,000 years old. I haven't updated it, but that was the educational piece, Create Learning, and I spent years, and still do, going around to schools and businesses showing how to use drawing, the process of drawing, even if you can't draw. The process of drawing as a reading, writing, and memory tool across the curriculum. Did that for many years, went everywhere, taught a lot of people. And then I did Jon Pearson Creative, which is a lot about my writing and my artwork. I love drawing, and I love making pictures. And I love writing. You know, I used to hate writing. Now I'd rather do writing than eat ice cream or do almost anything.
That's amazing.
So the website is basically a lot of my short stories. Yeah, and the short stories are one I say short, they're like 2 pages. It's like flash fiction, and there are 5 of them published, and then a lot of wild art. I think one of my, I can't find it. I've got a picture from that somewhere, not in front of me, but I laid all this stuff out. Oh, here it is. Now it's all covered up. I covered it with my introduction. I don't know if you can see that, but it's kind of wild stuff.
You did that?
I hope you can see that. Anyway, so that's it. So the website is just kind of fun, and you can see how I speak, what subjects I talk about, and so on.
You said that you enjoy writing more than eating ice cream. What was the turnaround for you?
Yeah, that's a great question, Alexis. In school, I was a driven kid. I was trying to get. I think I started to get as high a grades as I could starting in 2nd grade. I did something in 2nd grade that turned me on to doing well in school, and then I became driven academically. But one of the frustrations was I could never figure writing out. I mean, I did well in math, I did well in public speaking, but I couldn't figure out what they wanted. So for me, writing was all about what do they want. The teacher wanted something.
Sure.
The girls had better handwriting. My hand sucked. I thought I couldn't do it. It was like dropping something into a black box and getting a B plus. And I thought, what am I getting a B plus? I had to get this. This is A. But so for many years I hated writing, and I learned to hate writing basically in school. I mean, the school was about competition. It was about learn this one thing again and again, and I learned basically to hate it, to just despise it. And then several years ago, this is the turnaround. Several years ago, I was slamming my van door. I had a Chevy Astro van, and I was slamming the van door, and the phrase, "he lived inside Edward G. Robinson's head," just he lived inside Edward G. Robinson's head, floated to mind from out of nowhere. And I thought, gee, that's interesting. Edward G. Robinson was this gangster in the 1930s. He played gangsters. He's an actor. So I started writing this whole thing about a guy who lived in an amusement park called Gangster Lane, and he lived in a nostril, and he looked out through this little hole onto pavement. And every time I got blocked, I just said, it doesn't have to make sense. I mean, the thing is ridiculous to begin with. The guy's in a little, he's surveilling amusement park. And I wrote 850 pages. And every time I got stuck, I just said, it doesn't have to make sense. I wrote about life, death, bugs, everything, fractions, and whatever popped into my head, I just wrote. And I wrote, and I used to do school workshops for teachers. And they were all objectives driven. And I did that for all day. Then at night I came home and I said, heck, I'm just running into the background, let my brain go, and just went. And I realized that we all have a huge imagination. And then after that, and it was called In the Nostrils of an Icon. And then I did another one called Memoirs of a Gorilla, which was about a gorilla. And then I wrote 300 short stories, just boom. I just wrote and wrote. And it was fun because I could hardly wait to get to a place where I could let my imagination just go crazy.
That's awesome.
Long answer, but that's pretty much it.
So can anyone learn to become a better writer creatively?
Yeah. And here's why. Writing has nothing to do with writing. Writing has to do with imagination and observation. So if you can see and you can imagine and you can talk, you can write. Most people think they can't. Most people think, well, if I'm not a writer with a capital W, then why bother? But you make grocery lists. And you're writing all the time. So if you take off the notion of writing has to be with a capital W, and you realize that writing is just not just saying something, but seeing stuff. I mean, I write now not just to say stuff, but just to see what's going on in my head. And it's very odd. And because I write, I realize the extent of the oddness. So the simple answer is, if we don't try to write well, and if we don't compare ourselves to anybody, my motto is learn from everyone, compare yourself to no one. And if you just write, you will get better, especially if you also read good writers that you like and so on.
Great advice.
So
great advice. Now, what is one writing piece you're most proud of, and why?
Yeah, one of them. And, I laid all this stuff out here, so I'd be ready. And naturally, I can't find a damn thing. Here. It's underneath everything. I used to write stuff. Like I said, I wrote a zillion stories. Then my wife said, well, why don't you send these out and get them published? And I thought, well, I don't know, So then I connected with a place called Writers Relief, and it's called Writers Relief. I think that's S apostrophe relief. And then they send stuff out for you. It's a pretty good place, actually. It's very good. And I sent stuff out for 6 months and got nothing. And then finally I got accepted. Tears just fell out of my eyes. And then since then, I just got accepted again and again and again and again. But one of the things that popped up was something I wrote for my wife, actually on Valentine's Day, which is coming up tomorrow. And it's called A Busload of Banjo Players, and it's about how much I love my wife. And there's a little paragraph in here that I want to read. It goes like this. This is looking at my wife in a cafe someplace in Santa Barbara, as she proves once again that the greatest of all secrets, that beauty, real beauty, is far bigger than mere pretty. Pretty paints its toes and hopes you like its purse. It primps, it dallies, it dolls itself up, it licks its lovely teeth and prays somebody's watching. Beauty, on the other hand, could give a shit. It breaks the rules, it goes for broke, it's an all-or-nothing radioactive busload of banjo players flying off a cliff. Because while pretty can be sweet or cute or nice, beauty is a raging fire. It doesn't wish or want or worry or wait or look back. So I write like a kind of fire hose. I mean, stuff just blasts out of me. Also, I wrote another little piece, if I may. If I can share one more little short thing.
Yeah, no, please.
Yeah, this is a little writing. I mean, my wife went to Africa to work with Maasai girls in a safe house, and they called her Wazunga. So I wrote a whole story called Wazunga. Here's a paragraph of that. Wazunga means white people. Wazunga, the sound fills me with cowbells and drumming and the smell of roasted goat as I stare at the wide leather back of the chair in front of me, a nice chocolatey brown that seems to fatten and bloom as I fall face first into it. I was sitting in Starbucks, actually, staring at the back of a chair. Pure, deep, dark brown, oldest color on earth, the color paint makes when you mix all the colors together, the color of the bouncy, tall Maasai girls, all arms and legs and elbows with their flashy smiles and sugary laps and bright sunny dresses. I try to lose myself in the mud brown, the dirt brown, the brownness of the brown. I forget for a minute about Trump and the Electoral College and the fate of America and fall into the rejuvenating brownness as into a crystal ball and wonder, like a seed might wonder, blind and dumb. I wonder into the dirt deep miracle of growth itself, like a bee or an elephant from a place beyond thought. I wonder how the Maasai girls who have suffered so much and have so little can be so happy. So, a piece of my writing, and I always thought, Alexis, that a good conversation is two things: flights of imagination and depths of emotion. And I think the same is true of writing. And I think if people get past the idea of, I can't write, I'm not a great writer, I'm not a whatever, and just think, I'm just talking, and I just happen to be typing while I talk or writing while I talk, you can get very authentic. And if you really keep in mind that the imagination can go all over the place, and what I learned from all the writing I did was your mind, my mind, has a mind of its own. It wants to go places that have never been there, that you've never gone to before. And the pen is the way to get there for me, just letting your mind go and not being afraid to go off the rails.
Yeah, not being afraid is something that is definitely, like, when I hear your writing, it just sounds to me like you're kind of pushing, I don't know about pushing the envelope, but you're just kind of not really caring so much what other people are thinking. You're just kind of really like diving into a deeper place. It's almost like bravery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point.
Can you make?
It is. It's exactly that.
Can you make a living as a creative writer? I mean, you're doing it, but got teens.
Well, I'm not actually making the living as the writer. I make the living as a speaker and that sort of thing mostly. So I thought a lot about your question. I mean, because you gave it to me, but yeah, you can. A lot of people, when I look at writers, they're teaching in a college or they got a day job. They're mostly in education, doing something on the college level writing. Here's the thing: whatever you do, if you're also a writer, you're going to do that thing you do way, way better. And the reason you're going to do it way better is you're going to be able to describe and explain stuff. So you may not make a living as a novelist, or you may not make a living as a poet, or you may not make a living with short stories, but you're going to have a heck of a lot of fun, and you're going to feed parts of your soul, which when you then go out and make the living will feel so fed and so happy that people will think, my God, there's something going on with this person. And what's going on with a person is they really get to be in touch with the bigness of their imagination. So short answer, I don't know. I don't know how to make a writer, but I've had a good living as a creative guy who uses drawing as a reading, writing, memory tool, turns it into speaking, turns it into writing, and opens up people's imaginations. So, yeah, we live in a new age. Maybe writing could be blogs. Maybe writing could be stuff that you do, podcasts. So there are lots of ways to use that writing. I hope that's useful. I feel like I'm talking a lot, but
No, that's really useful. You have to almost be a jack of all trades, but the underlining is being creative, and whether so you're an artist in this case, a great artist. I've seen your work on your website, but you speak and you do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, right?
Yeah, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. The other thing that pops into my head is when I used to get up and I'd go down to a Starbucks or this place called the Champagne Cafe, and I would write for hours. I wouldn't make the business calls I needed to that day. I'd push everything off and just write. And there was this little kid inside me who wanted to go play on the swings. And, Daddy, can we go play? So I would go and I'd get my coffee and I'd sit down at the window and I'd just start with a blank piece of paper and head out. Write about anything. The nostril, the gorilla, and after a few hours of that, I felt so happy and so indispensable. I felt like, wow, I just went someplace that nobody else would go exactly there, but I did. So then when I got done, everything else in my life worked better. Everything else in my life was easier. The call, the guy was grumpy. I don't care what's going on in the world. I want to do my part, but I don't want to spend time getting down because I met my creativity corner. And if I always think of people who don't see themselves, I guess if nothing else from this podcast, that people feel, look, I don't have to be a writer with a capital W to write. And writing brings out stuff in me, in my imagination, I can't get any other way. I'm going to let myself just write. Maybe, 10 minutes a day. Just let my imagination go and go and go and feel this part of it that really feels seen and heard. Then I don't have to have the world see and hear me. I'm not as needy in the world out there.
Nice.
So
how can parents help foster a love of writing, creative writing? Well,
the first thing that pops in my head there, Alexis, is read to your kids. I had two brilliant, amazing parents. And my mother used to, and my dad too, but my mom in particular used to read to my brother and me when we were kids. I remember lying on my back on the rug and listening to Jack and the Beanstalk. And, my mother would be sitting on the couch and she would read it like an actress because she was smart, good, loved words.
Nice.
And I felt, my God, those magicians who can pull 800 feet of scarf out of their mouth or some damn thing. It was like that. Words were like these magic scarf. And I thought, damn it, this is magic. And I realized the love of writing. Then I got into school. We had the reading group, the Eagle, the Dove, the Hurt Finch. I was a Hurt Finch because I was lousy and I had a big imagination, but was a lousy read. I was slow, painful. And then I realized if I can imagine into the sentence, I could really, I could be a slow reader, even a struggling reader, and really see If it said the dog ran up the hill, I could really see a dog and really see a hill and really see where the hill is and who owned the dog and what's the atmosphere. So I learned that my imagination was gigantic. So what I would say to parents is, don't put a lot of pressure on your kids, period. And secondly, writing is just a fun place to go where you can feel and see yourself and let your imagination out. It comes down to observation and imagination, the two things that kids do all the time, even when they're not, and especially when they're not paying attention. Kids who aren't paying attention in school are observing stuff and imagining stuff. So they're great at it. Just use a pen and write it down. I say writing is just talking on a phone to your favorite friend, only you happen to be writing, like that. So read to your kids and get them right. And also you write, and write poorly. I mean, break every, in school there were so many rules. And if you messed up on one, in my case, I got less than an A, which was devastation. But, now if I could go back into school, I would have rather, actually in my childhood, I would have rather failed more and feared less. And in writing, I would have rather just broken the rules, spell it wrong, don't have margins, crumple the paper first, then write, get pissed off if you get it good, and if you do it well, and if you do it poorly, get happy, just change and just see what your head does when you take away the grammar and the spelling police. Now, I'm a big fan of the grammar and spelling police, but not at the beginning. I think at the beginning, just get stuff out. And then get it out and then get into it. In school, it's the reverse. Get it right or don't put it down. And that is stultifying and paralyzing, and many people never get over that.
How do you overcome your writer's block?
The first thought that pops in my head is there is no such thing. If I say right, if you say mayonnaise 100 times in a row, you're going to get convinced that mayonnaise rules the world. Mayonnaise, and after about 5 times, you don't know what it is.
Sure.
I would say to people, there's no such thing. It's a phantom. Now, if I picture writer's block, what I actually picture is a giant brick wall or like a lead wall. So good luck. So the next time I see blank paper and get stuck, I'm like, oh crap, I'm in a brick wall, that famous brick wall. So there isn't one. So there's no such thing as writer's block. And if there is, it's not 5 miles deep. It's a centimeter deep, and it's going to pass. So get happy with it, get comfortable with it, and realize it's just time in. A lot of time, even though I write a lot, it's not always easy. To me, it's like reeling in a marlin fish. You got to pull and nothing, and something. But it's the fact that it took a struggle that makes it great. So the first thing is there is no such thing. And if you feel like there is such a thing, just do something wilder, do something worse. Write garbage, write one word 50 times, turn it upside down, go take a walk, write from a place of a drunken clown. Be a different you, be a squirrel with a broken foot and stuck in a trap and use a different voice to write with. In other words, like I did with the Nostra book, it doesn't have to make sense. The other thing I think is a very important thing is getting over procrastination, which is also a partner to writer's block, perfectionism, and I used to say to myself, Alexis, I'm going to write a half an hour a night, and then I'd never do it, and then I'd lie in bed for 25 minutes beating myself up. So I said, okay, here's the deal. I'm going to write for 1 minute a night, and then I'd go on for an hour. And the point is, with procrastination, I break every job into 3 parts: beginning, doing, and celebrating. So instead of, I got to clean the house, it'll take an hour, I say I'm going to clean the house for 30 seconds. And then it's inertia. Once the tough thing is starting. Same thing with writer's block. Just start. Or write a piece about writer's block. I did a lot of writing workshops with kids, and I'd say, look, I called it the QVD3 process. First, quantity. Write anything. Just write one word. Next, variety. Okay, write different words. Next, quantity, variety, detail. Now put in detail. A big writing thing is don't tell us, show us. Don't say the lady was tired. Describe what it's like dragging grocery bags up 18 flights. Show us. And the next thing is third person. So you say, instead of I hate writing, I got a block, I can't think. She hates writing, she's got a block. It's 1822, and she's got 5 minutes before they're going to execute her. But she's got to write a note to her family. But she's now stuck, and she's got 3 minutes before the executioner bangs on the door. What are you going to write? And then you got to think, well, crap, I got 3 minutes. Writer's block. I'd be dead and, whatever. Writer's block, schmiter's block. My point is, we try to write from the place of ourself, and we try to write perfectly, and then we compare ourselves to the person who writes so incredibly well, and then hell, I mean, I can pick up John Steinbeck or Faulkner and think, crap, what am I doing? But there are sentences that I write that I think, that's as good as Faulkner. Hell, damn right, straight up. And the point is, it's not writing to be good or get an award. It's writing to find out who you really, really are in great detail. And when you do that, your life is way more vibrant. I love my wife more now. My wife, her name is Elia Braden. She's a writer and an ex-lawyer, made money as a lawyer. Now she's a poet, an actress, a singer, and beautiful and amazing. I help her with her writing, and I bring out the silly in her. Anyway, that's, I keep giving you long answers, but I hope it's helpful to the audience out there.
I think so. I really do. How do we best get in touch with you and like work with you and interact with you?
Well, yeah, that's a great question, and I actually typed something up. The simple answer, because I'm fairly old fashioned, the best, if you really want to get into it, phone me. And
okay, that
number, yeah. In fact, I can hold it. Can you see this? This is all in. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah. 310-922-6878.
Yeah, and then I've got the email. I'll hold it up for a sec so people can see that if they want, and then I'll read it off.
I'm going to put it on the show notes when I send you the links.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's basically Jon Pearson. That's Jon and Pearson, and the number is 310-922-6878, and it's Jon Jon Stewart Stuart Pearson Pearson @gmail.com. And I got johnpearsoncreative.com and createlearning.com. So that's like everything. That's
Is your art for sale?
Some of it, not all of it.
Okay.
But my wife keeps saying, John, why don't you sell this stuff? Because you got a bunch. I got to learn to, my wife is the goad who gets me doing stuff. So, yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I got to find out what I want to let go of, though. So.
Okay.
Can I say one quick thing?
Sure.
One quick thing. Every day, since I love my wife, I make her a little picture and a story. I'm up to, for the guys out there who have wives, women, friends, whatever, I'm up to 1,485 or something. So this is one of the first ones. And there's a little picture of a dog, and it says, when Maddie's dog Harvard tried on the new pearls and the patent leather pumps and looked at himself full in the mirror, he knew it was love at first sight, and he was glad for everything that ever happened. So every day I make my wife a little poem picture thing, and I do that, Alexis, so that my wife will have a surprise every day. And I think, and I just sit down and do it. Well, if I don't want to do it, I do it anyway. I just sit down and do it, and it's a great practice. So
that's amazing, man.
That
is just. When do you do that note? Do you do that
at
night?
Late at night. Usually,
late at night.
Usually when I'm, when I want to go to bed, and I thought, oh God, I got to do the card for my wife. Dang. Then I sit down and often when I'm tired. See, I guess the practice is I don't want to, but I do it anyway, and it doesn't have to be perfect, and she'll like it anyway. But sometimes, if you A, just do things, and B, don't try to do well. The surest way to write poorly is to try to write really well. That's the one sure way to kill it. But to just get stuff down and out keeps it alive. So, yeah.
That's remarkable. Any tips for teens listening to you today who are getting ready to cross that bridge from teenage years to the young adulthood? Yeah.
Here's a tip that comes to me. A couple of things pop into my head. It's been 1,000 years since I was a teen, so I got to hand it to you. You guys are in a brand new world, and I'm like a dinosaur. But I'm guessing what it's like for you. But here's some universals. Number one, believe in yourself no matter what. I say that with almost tears in my eyes because I had to find my way in the world, and I tried to get a job or fit in. And after years of looking, I just made up my own job. I made up my own work. I made up my own life. I created it. I've never stayed in a box, anyone's box. So believe in yourself. Secondly is, if you want to land on your feet, have fun and be of service. Find ways to either have fun doing what you're doing and be of service. Do it for purposes bigger than yourself. Another thing is, what motivates all of us are three things: pleasure, mastery, and values. So take a piece of paper, make 3 columns. At the first one, put the word fun. Write down everything you do for fun. And don't write full sentences, just words. Eat, swim, dance, bike, whatever. Next one, expert. Everything you're good at or you want to be good at. I'd love to play the trombone, but I probably never will. But I'd like to. I'd like to be an astronaut. Whatever. Make a list of everything you're good at or want to be. And thirdly, all of your heroes and sheroes, all the people you look up to. They can even be cartoon characters or fictional. Bugs Bunny is a hero. Abe Lincoln, Helen Keller. When you get a list of this, you know what you do for fun, you know what you're good at, and you know what your values are. Those are great things to write about. Write about the time you did this thing, the place you did that thing, and what really means something to you. And don't try to write well. Just try to get to meet that weird, interesting, cool person inside you. I was considered intense and weird all my life, and then I realized intense people get stuff done if they learn how to use their intensity properly. And weird is an ancient Celtic word that means he or she who has found her destiny. So, find your weird, find your writing. And I do a lot of drawing as it leads into talking. Oh, and last, I got to share this real quickly. I did a thing, because I work with kids a lot. I did this thing. I do drawing first, and then they talk, and then they write. So I did this thing where I drew what is this stupid thing? Here, I'll draw it again. Draw it quick. I drew a picture like this, and it looks like the Kool-Aid guy. See? And I said, this is in front of second graders, Alexis. I said, you got 4 minutes to write a story. So here's a story by a 7-year-old girl from the picture. There once lived a potato that had no job. So he went to the job place, and he found he could lead a parade. So he did, but there was no parade. So he looked and looked, and they said, you don't look for it, it comes. And so he waited, and it did, and he was happy. The end. Now, if you didn't start with something particular, what would you do? Say, how was your summer vacation? Just make a doodle. Look at the doodle. Write a story. So most of my stories started just by slamming a door or writing something. It's easy. Writing's actually, it's 2 things. It's easy and it's hard as hell, but it's also fun. And the fun part it's what makes the hard part. But for now, to me, it's hard because I want to say exactly what I want to say. In school, it was hard because I was trying to do it for someone else. I was trying to write for them, for the teacher, for the imagined critical audience. I don't care now. I'm writing for me. And the hard part is being able to say exactly what I want. But that's also the fun part and the part that makes me proud of myself when I get something I really, really love.
That's awesome.
So there you go.
That's great. I'm just trying to write this down for the show notes. Well, Jon, thanks again. Thanks for coming on the Prepped and Polished podcast today. I appreciate your time.
It was a pleasure, Alexis. Yeah, it was a pleasure, and keep up the good work, man.
Thank you. And this wraps up our show. This was episode number 206 with artist, speaker, Jon Pearson. To work with Jon, please visit him at www.jonpearsoncreative.com. I'm going to spell it for you. It's JONPERSON creative.com. Episode 207 is coming soon. It will be our tutoring tips episode. To access today's conversation with Jon, you can find us on preppedandpolished.com/podcast. You can go to soundcloud.com/preppedandpolish. It will also be on YouTube. Thank you for joining us for over 200 episodes of the Prepped and Polished podcast. Now go out there and take control of your education.
You've been listening to the Prepped and Polished podcast. For more information, check out preppedandpolished.com. Also, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for listening. Class dismissed.